This module we call the big picture, and we call it that because this course is really about your success. And so we need to take a look at the big picture about you. And so one of the things that you've reviewed in the readings, or you'll see in the module, is the introduction or the overview for your career vision board. Okay, so let me just briefly address this. We'll talk about it in class. But the vision board is the high level presentation of who you are, what you aspire to do, how you're going to do it, what motivates you to do it, and why did you choose to do this. And so, like any organization, they all have vision and mission statements, as do many of the people. So your vision statement is the what and the why. What is it that you are trying to accomplish? What is your career goal, and why? Why are you choosing it? And we'll talk about it in class. The mission statement is how are you going to do it? For example, I will complete my 2-year degree at MTC, and then I will transfer to the University of South Carolina to complete my 4-year degree in whatever. Okay, we'll take a look at also a motivational image and motivational quote. We'll talk about it in class, but again, this is really a reminder to help keep you inspired to action. Okay. And then we also want to know, what are the primary reason or reasons you are choosing this career? Is it just a personal passion? Is it some skill or strength that you have? Is it the money and job opportunities? Is it your family, your friends? There's a number of reasons that may have led you to make what will arguably be the biggest decision of your life up to this point, unless you're perhaps married. Okay. So that's kind of the setup for this first part of the vision board project. And so you can see that there's going to do a vision statement, a mission statement, some kind of motivational image or quote, and factors in choosing your major and why. Again, clarity of purpose. It's going to help you clarify your goal and values. It'll give you a kind of a clear sense of direction in your life. Then there's the focus and motivation aspect of it. A well-defined vision can keep you motivated, right? It can guide your decisions to hopefully make good decisions toward achieving that end goal. And then there's the accountability portion. Just simply writing it down and seeing your vision and mission can create a sense of accountability, right? And we want you to succeed. You want to be held accountable. Okay, we're going to shift a little bit, just kind of administratively. Again, this is big picture stuff. That any organization that you work for of any size will have policies and procedures in place. And so you need to think of yourself as an employee at Midlands Tech. And so there are policies and procedures as a student that you are expected to understand. And so you all went through a new student orientation. And so there's a number of things that was covered, and you probably, have forgotten a lot of it, but many of these will cover it to some degree in class. But the big thing is the first one, the email, how to use my MTC, and D2L for all of your core shells. You need to monitor your emails. That is the primary way that we communicate with students. And it just drives me crazy when I'll send emails to students and they say they never received it, which they received it, they never opened it. And of course, you need to be comfortable with working within the D2L shell. Um, Again, we will discuss many of these, but just understand that all of this was covered in your orientation. And if you have questions, it's probably on the website. It's probably been covered. You should feel comfortable with navigating the MTC website. You should also be familiar with leadership, and there's one in particular I want to point out. The president, Dr. Gregory Little, is pretty obvious what the president is. He is in charge of everything Midlands Tech. One that you may not understand the role is Dr. Barry Kirk. She is the provost. You have probably received an email from her, and we have video of her welcoming you that hopefully you watched, but you may not be familiar with the word provost. Okay, so simply put, provost is she is in charge of all things academic. She answers to the president for the academics. And so on the academic side, both for faculty and for students, she is next below the president, kind of in our chain of command, if you will. And then Ben Gaston is the dean of the School of STEM. The PE is professional engineer, so he's an engineer. And so he's in charge of the various departments that fall under the School of STEM. And for this particular course, we work directly, or I work directly for Dean Gaston in this class. Okay, another thing that I want to bring up that we may not have time to discuss in class is this idea of pointing at the right target. I find frequently that students misidentify their target goal, what they want to be. So, for example, I will have many students come in and declare that they want to be a software engineer. And that's reasonable because they understand why I want to be involved in code development and so forth. And software engineer is an engineering degree. It's very difficult. It's 4 to 5 years long, and it has a very defined kind of career associated with it. But people will mistakenly say they want to be a software engineer when, in fact, what they really want to be is a software developer. Very different job. And so the way that I can explain this, I have two examples up there. The difference between an architect and a carpenter. I think everybody understands the role of an architect that has all the engineering background to be able to to create a structure, right? The plans for a structure, but the architect is not going to be actually building that structure. Carpenters, electricians, and so forth. And so the carpenter executes the plans of the architect. Okay, well, a software developer often is executing the plans of a software engineer. The software engineer has a much higher level, big picture look at a complex software program, where the developers will often be involved in creating the code to execute that plan. So I just encourage you to be careful that you are identifying the correct level of education, because it's a big difference. A software developer is just a 2-year degree here at Tech. You can get a good job. You can see there's a difference in pay, but there's a difference in the education and the responsibilities also. So keep that in mind as we move forward. I'm going to play this video by Jennifer, but let me just set the stage for Jennifer. She was one of my math students, and when I met her the first day of class and we go through the introductions, Jennifer said that this was her third time in college. Okay, and so my initial impression was, uh-oh, it didn't go well twice. What's going to happen? And she ended up being one of the best students I've ever had. And I would argue that the difference between Jennifer version 3 and Jennifer version 1 and 2 when she went to college was that she had a vision now. She had a mission. She had a purpose for being in college that she didn't have before. So I want you to listen to what she says here in just a second.
To find your motivation, whatever reason that is, whether it's, I need financial aid, I'm looking for a better job, a better life for my family, whatever that is, have that motivation and set goals. Make them tangible, make them realistic, because I've realized in the past when I've done this, I've had goals that were years out. So that's great, but also setting short-term goals to help you get there. That way there's always that light at the end of the tunnel, no matter what, whether it's I just want to get through this semester, I just want to get through this week, I want to maintain a certain GPA, whatever that is. Make it simple, make it attainable, and go to class. I know a lot of us are doing virtual. Be at your laptop, be in class if you have in-person classes, sit in a place where you're going to be able to pay attention. Generally, I sat in the middle of the class. I found if I sat like against a wall or something like that, I was going to get too relaxed, I want to be able to be seen when I raise my hand and heard when I ask a question. So choosing where you sit is really important. And of course, asking those questions, not to be afraid, because again, best case scenario, you'll have your question answered. And to remind yourself of those goals when things get difficult to help you stay motivated.
So what took Jennifer from dropping out twice to being one of the best students I've ever had? Okay, you heard her say the word motivation, right? But a lot of that was tied to, she talked about goals, and that's your vision, right? The vision. She talked about both short-term and long-term goals and to make them attainable. Okay, so this is kind of a vision and a combination mission. She tells you to go to class, to be engaged. This is part of the mission. This is how you will achieve your goal. And so, again, the only difference between Jennifer version 3 and 1 and 2 is that she had a vision and a mission to be successful. The last thing that you will look at in this module is the Connections Quest Challenge 1, and it just says plan ahead. And what the idea of this Connections Quest is to get you to engage in some capacity and in some form with Midlands Tech. As a student, you shouldn't be comfortable not being part of the college community. And so this is just an effort. We're going to have 3 of these for you to reach out in some capacity and connect with some of the resources available to you as a student. So you can read about it, but just plan ahead that we will have you do 3 of these. Fairly simple. There's not a lot to it, but just connecting with Midlands Tech in some capacity. Okay?